Back in Revelations, we're just about to get past and through the tribulation. Praise the Lord. It's all smooth sailing after that. For us, anyway. So, last week we went through 17 and the destruction of Babylon. And so 18 is going to be about the destruction of Babylon. And so this is, and I kind of stopped last week, told you I was going to kind of explain some things this week the best that I can in the way that I see it, because so let's describe the characters first of 17. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things in chapter 17, 6 symbolisms for certain things. There's the whore, and there's the beast that she is upon, and there is the 10 horns upon the beast, and I think there's 7 crowns. Is it 7 crowns on the beast? Let me look before I tell you that. The beast, 10 horns, 10 horns, yeah, I got that. The 7 heads. Okay, 7 heads. Yeah, okay, so there's the whore, there's the beast, there's the 10 horns, the 7 heads, and then there's the water. Is that everything? I think it is. And so we kind of talked somewhat about what those things symbolize, which the angel told us as well. But one part that I've always couldn't fully understand, I still don't fully understand, but I've come to my understanding, and I've read a lot of commentaries, a lot of theologians, what they've said about this and thought about this. And so anyway, I'll just tell you how I understand it. If you see it another way, that's absolutely fine, because I am not very high on the confidence scale. This is, but so we know. So let's go through the characters first. We know that the whore that sits on the beast is Babylon. Okay. Now, a lot of theologians, if not most theologians that study New Testament scriptures, and especially a lot of them, believe that 17 and 18 are talking about 2 different Babylons. That 17, and I agree with this, 17 is religious Babylon. It's the religiosity. It's talking about 2 different destructions. And so the whore that sits on the beast is this religious Babylon. The beast itself is the Antichrist. Now he has those 7 heads, and we talked about those heads last week, that I believe those represented kingdoms that Satan used throughout the ages. And then it says the 8th, because it only mentions 7, but then it says the 8th one is one who was and was not and then was, the Antichrist, the one who died and came back to life. And so the 8th one, the final head, the main head of the beast, is the Antichrist. The beast itself is the Antichrist. Now he has 10 horns, and he tells us plainly those are 10 kingdoms. And we talked about those 10 kingdoms are going to be during the tribulation time, and it's going to be 10 kings that doesn't have a kingdom, but the Antichrist is going to give them a kingdom in an hour. So he's going to empower these men who have never been over kingdoms, but he's going to empower them so that he can use them to rule the world. And then the water, it says the woman was upon the water, and then the angel tells us that the water is, and I think it's 15. Yeah, the waters that thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples, multitudes, and nations and tongues. So this is the people that she has manipulated and um, you know, caused to follow her and follow her damnation throughout the ages. I don't believe this is during the tribulation time. I think this is throughout the ages. Water is, when it uses that term, especially that she's sitting upon water, that's a pretty significant picture of a lot. So I think it's talking about this same theme throughout the ages. This same horror has been plaguing mankind, I believe, since the beginning. And the part that I found baffling, and I was even talking to Kayla about it today through text messages, because I understand all that. I understand the kingdoms. I understand, the 7 kingdoms. I understand that, and I believe I know who they are. And I understand the 10 horns. I understand that is kingdoms during the tribulation period that are going to give their power. It says God even convinces them to give their power to the Antichrist. It tells us that in 17, for God put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdoms to the beast, to the Antichrist, until the words of God be fulfilled. So again, the 10 horns, I understand that. It's the kingdoms. Antichrist is going to use the kingdoms to rule the world. And the beast, I understand to be the Antichrist. The only part that I've found baffling and that I've had to really consider and think about, and I've read and studied and read people's commentaries, people a lot smarter than me, but kind of landed in my own little patch. And that's why I say, if you don't agree, just take this with a grain of salt. But what is interesting, so it says the whore sits on the beast. So she's using the beast. She is using the beast to accomplish her purposes. She's using the beast to help her with her following, the water that they're both on top of. And the beast is using her. And so this religious Babylon, let's go back, and before we even get it, we might not even get to 18. That's okay, because I want to flesh this out and explain why I believe the way I believe. But let's examine a little more closely the woman. Let's start at verse 4 and 17. Well, actually, let's start at verse 3. And so it says, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw the woman. So he's already explained this is the whore that sits upon many waters. And it says, and I saw the woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. So this is the image of the Antichrist and his kingdoms and kingdoms throughout the ages, because those 7 heads, and then the 10 horns, of course, is during the tribulation period, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color. So purple and scarlet color, what is that? What is not so much in our day, but 2,000 years ago, what would that represent? Well, not just Jesus, but royalty, kingdom, kingships, power, authority. Okay? Let's go on. And decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. So, this woman, she's arrayed in purple and scarlet. So this is symbolic, so this is not actually a woman. We all understand that. So this is, and I said she represents Babylon, but I believe she represents religious Babylon. But what religion? That's what's so curious, because, let me jump, you just stay where you're at. Let me just show you this, and then you'll start to see why I was baffled for a while. It says, verse 16, it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore." They'll hate her. These 10 kingdoms that are in control totally by the Antichrist. It says they're going to hate her, and they're going to make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So in other words, the Antichrist in these 10 kingdoms are going to turn on this whore that's on his back. They're going to turn on religious Babylon. God is not destroying this religious Babylon. The Antichrist is going to destroy her. And so, do you see how reading that sounds so odd, because you say, well, this religion, is it not controlled by the devil? Is that religious Babylon, is that not, because she's riding on the Antichrist back. Who is in control of the Antichrist? Let's just go to that. Let's just quit saying the Antichrist. Let's just call him the devil, because he is controlled by the devil. He is just a puppet, and by this point, the Antichrist has already died. That man's soul has left his body, and he is resurrected. And I believe that he is resurrected full incarnate Satan. So I believe that this man now, here at this point, is Satan. Satan himself, in human flesh. I believe he's reanimated this body, and he is Satan. So for some reason, we find out in the later parts of chapter 17 that this religious woman that sits on the devil's back, that's been using him to have a mass following, but he's also been using her to accomplish his will. All of a sudden, in the end, he's going to turn on her and destroy her. Absolutely and utterly destroy her. And now you can see how that can, you're like, well, that's so weird. Because it's almost like that when they told Jesus, you're Beelzebub casting out devils by the power of Beelzebub. And then Jesus said, a kingdom divided can't stand. Satan can't fight against his own kingdom. And so that's what it kind of sounds like when you first read through that. It sounds like Satan's fighting against himself, because the Antichrist, Satan, and all the kingdoms that he's ruling is going to turn and fight against the religion of the day. And it's a false religion. So you think, well, that's a false religion, has to be controlled, directed by Satan, you would think. But let's look at it. Let's look at her. Satan, from the very beginning, what has he desired? What has Satan desired? Not what has he desired for mankind, not what has he got against God, not goodness and badness, but what has Satan, that we know from Scripture from the very beginning, what has been the desire of his heart? To be like God. But what does he want? That. He wants glory. Satan's true desire from the very beginning is he has wanted the glory and the worship that God was receiving. That's what he's always wanted. And I've always said that, the devil didn't care how he got it, just as long as he stole worship and glory from God, and he used all these different religions and demons and so forth to, all these false religions. And I do believe that all false religions are demonic. Most, I'm sure some people has created some at some time, but I think most of them are originated in demonic activity. There's some demon behind it causing it. Away from God. But I don't think this whore is that way. Let me turn this off. I don't think that she is a demonic or a spiritual religion. Because it says that, and upon her forehead was the name of Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. The devil and his kingdoms, the principalities and the power of the air. He has kingdoms, he has demons all throughout the whole, the whole cosmos, I believe. But I believe that this woman is batteries. I believe that this woman is earthy, carnal, and humanistic to its core. Look at everything that she represents. She represents human authority and power, because it says she's arrayed in purple and scarlet color. That would not be representative in the spiritual world. The devil would not be representing himself in these colors. So to me, this is an earthly, carnal authority. And then it says, and she's decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, and having a golden cup. These are all the aesthetics to the carnal man. This is all the things that we lust after and desire. Everything you see, even see the abominations and the filthiness of her fornication, sexual. All these things that this woman is carnal. It's not spiritual. It's all what humans so desire, the self-satisfaction and the authority and the power in humans. So where I'm going with this is, what I believe the woman is the man's... See, now the devil has used this all throughout the ages for his purposes. But I don't think it's his end goal, and I don't think it's his end desire that we full on go in this direction. But what he's created is this self-worshiping, I am God, I serve myself, I please myself, I only do what I want to do. I lust after the things that I want. I want to gratify myself, and nothing else matters. It's been the case for mankind all throughout that's even what the devil tempted Eve with, but I don't think that's what the devil truly wanted. And here, I don't think at the end, when he is actually in flesh, when he's actually took over the body of a man, he's finally going to get what he really truly wants, and that is the worship of these God image bearers. He wants to receive the full worship. But this whore, this humanistic religion of self-worship that the devil has had a huge hand in creating, now everyone him, and he demands the worship, but they're so busy worshiping themselves. They're more interested in self-worship than they are for his worship. And he can't take it anymore. He's like, no, you worship me and me alone. The whole image of the beast, the whole mark of the beast, the whole forcing people to worship him. Do you see what I'm saying? This is just a theory of mine. If you don't agree with that, it's absolutely okay. But that's how because everything this woman is earthy and carnal, and it's not spiritual, and it's not something even that the demons would get caught up in. This is totally humanistic and totally self-gratifying and totally self-worshiping. And then for some reason we find out at the end of 17 that the Antichrist, the devil himself, turns on her and destroys her. So anybody that won't come out of this religion of self-worship and worship him and him alone, just like God demands, he destroys them. He kills them. And they're really his own people. They're the people he helped create, is what's so ironic about it. So anyway, I wanted to get that fleshed out before we get into 18. Has anybody got any questions about that? Because that could be...
That also shows how, even though the devil's way to roll up smoothly,
Yeah.
it's still imperfection.
Yeah.
To show that, he's
Well, that's what I said last week. That's what I was talking about last week, is how we could just honestly, I hate to see Christians get so tore up when evil is in power or evil people are doing, setting up wicked things. Because I always say, just stand back and watch them, because they will destroy they'll destroy themselves. They'll attack themselves, because when you depart from God's ways, God is sovereign, God is creator of all, and God has set everything in order to run under His guidance and under His laws and under His commandments and under His rules. And when they don't run that way, they don't work. It doesn't work. It causes confusion, it causes catastrophe, it causes collapse, it causes, and that goes with the devil too. Everything that the devil has forcefully tried to accomplish in the history of mankind, we can just read the scriptures, has utterly failed. His greatest accomplishment, I'm sure, not now, not after the fact, but during the fact, if you were standing there with Satan himself, and Satan's going to, we give him a lot of credit, way too much credit. And it says when we see him, not when we see him, but when those other people that are cast into hell, it says when they see him, when he is cast in there with them, it says all the people throughout all the ages, all the nations that the devil has tricked and convinced to live sinful, unrighteous lives, when they see him, it says they're going to say, "You're the one that tricked the nations?" He's going to be very disappointing. We give him a lot of credit. He's going to be very disappointing. Of those people that see him when he's cast into hell, they're going to be like, "You are the one who tricked us. You're the one who brought nations to its knees." So, yeah, he's... anyway. Forgot what I was going to say, but... What was the last thing you said? Something I was going to say to that. I don't know. I don't remember. Oh yeah. Showing this that even so, Satan has used humanity's pride and self-love and self-worship to his advantage to destroy us. It's still not going to work out for him, as we can see here. That even when we get to the end and he's created this religion to help them just to get away from God and to get away from God's word, it's not going to work out for his benefit. It's not going to work out for what he wants, because he wants worship. He wants glory. That's what he's always wanted. He wanted what God has, but he can't get it. And he is just like us in that when you abandon God's ways and you abandon God's laws, it is not going to work out for you. It is never going to end well. That the road for humans and the road for angels, when you're on the road away from the Lord, ends in destruction, chaos, and confusion. That's the only way it can go. And the road to the Lord is the narrow path, and keeps us in right standing and sound minds and structure and right, and it can't be moved. It's unmovable. Yeah.
And this structure has to be thrown together haphazardly because it's got to be open to be inviting to come on in.
Exactly.
If it was true and love, like the board structure that's right, then you would automatically recognize that's the devil.
Well, and it.
Obviously,
Yeah.
it's a mess.
Yep. Yep. It's built with rotten materials. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's built with rotten materials, so it can't stand, and so again, he's just a failure. That's all you could say. Everything he's ever tried, everything he's ever... Well, that's what I was saying. I never finished it. That if you could go back in time and stand beside him during what he would have thought was the greatest moment of his life, and finally, when he was actually obtaining a victory for the first time ever, is when Christ was on the cross. And he would, I'm sure he was elated for that 3 days thinking, I have won. I have finally overcome. I finally beat God in some way. I finally accomplished something. And then in 3 days he found out that what he did, thinking he was winning, actually cost him everything. That he actually was playing right into the hands of God as usual. So, yeah. But anyway, that's my thoughts on 17. I just wanted to explain that before we got into 18. I don't know how else to take that. I don't know why else the Antichrist and the devil would turn on this false religion. Again, I don't think this is this religion is talking about what we're going to see as a worldwide religion, the worship of the beast. I don't think it's that. I think it's the humanistic self-worship that we see everywhere, all over the place right now. And another thing that kind of worries me, and I've talked about, not here, but I've talked about this quite a bit, is when you read about New Babylon, when you read about this great whore, she sure sounds a lot like the United States of America. She sure sounds a lot like the United... If I had to pick any country in the whole world who she looked like, who she sounds like, it would be the United States of America. That's yeah. I mean, it's pretty frightening, actually, and maybe that's who she'll be in the end. I don't know, but anyway, let's get into 18. So 18, I believe, is talking about actual tangible city, an actual location, a geographical place. And I believe it'll be the place of the Antichrist. And so we've already read in 16, of course, all of the 7 bowls already been poured out. And so right here, 17 and 18, it's just kind of fleshing all that out. Like it's everything has already been destroyed, but it's just going back and telling us, like, this is what happened to Babylon during this time. So just so you don't get confused. Like, this is not after 16. This was actually during 16. Chapter 16 of all the bowls, 7 bowls, vials. So chapter 18, it says, And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. So this angel, he has great power, and the whole earth is lightened, in other words, illuminated by his glory. Must be a powerful angel. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she reward you, and double unto her double according to her works, and the cup which she hath filled to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and she shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judged her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and pearls and the fine linen and the purple and silk and scarlet and thyine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble, and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beast and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. In other words, she is an extremely lucrative.
Maybe it's Hollywood in the film industry.
Possibly. This is an extremely rich city, extremely wealthy. I mean, it's giving you a list of, overly abundantly in all the world, she is the most lucrative. Who is that? Again. Yeah. 14. And the fruits that thou so lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company in the ships and sailors and as many as trade in the sea stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their head and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. So in other words, in 1 hour, this city is going to be wiped off the face of the earth. In 1 hour, totally, absolutely decimated. And not only that, the richest city in the world is going to be absolutely decimated. The whole world is going to mourn her passing. The whole world is going to look at her. They're all going to be in awe. But they're also going to mourn because they were all partakers of her richness and her glory. And it says in verse 19, and they cast dust on their head. Scribes in 17 is going to be destroyed by the 10 kings and the Antichrist himself. The city in chapter 18 is going to be destroyed by God himself, not by the Antichrist. So this, and the whole world and the Antichrist and everybody in the world is going to mourn this city being destroyed because they all profited from her. They all, this is a literal place. 17 is a system and peoples, but it's a system of worship. This is a tangible, literal place, a geographical place that God is going to wipe off the face of the earth, and all of the earth is going to mourn over it. Then it says, verse 21, and the mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. That'll be the end of that city, Babylon. And as I was reading and studying and reading all these people's commentaries and looking at all this stuff, because again, a lot of this is speculation, because this is, this could be symbolic and this might not be symbolic, because there is a place called Babylon. There is an actual real place that was called Babylon that still exists today in Iraq. There's a real place. And I was reading a lot of people's comments and commentaries on this, and they think that very possibly that could be the Antichrist's seat when he comes back, that it could be in that real literal place of Iraq, Babylon. Saddam Hussein, he kept saying that he was Nebuchadnezzar. He said he was a reincarnated Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He would say that. And a lot of people kind of freaked out when he said it, thinking, is he really? Is he really thinking he might be the Antichrist, what Revelations is talking about? But no, he wasn't. Wasn't even close. Verse 22. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. In other words, this land is going to be desolate for the remainder of time of earth, which is at least 1,000 years. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all the nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and the saints, and all that were slain upon the earth. Now, so we see the destruction of religious Babylon by the Antichrist himself, and now we're seeing the destruction of Babylon itself by God himself, and we're seeing the mourning of all the earth. And then we're going to get into, before we get into, heaven, the wonderful, it's going to talk a little bit more about the end, about the very end, about the false prophet, the beast, and all those, the armies gathered together, about Armageddon. That'll be in 19. So I think, how do I want to say that? So 16 takes us through all the 7 vials, and that takes us through the whole 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. So that's the whole thing. And then 17 and 18 takes us through the destruction of both Babylons during that same time period, one by the Antichrist and one by God. And then 19 will give us some other things, the marriage of the Lamb, the glorious appearing of Jesus, and so on. But also it gives us the Armageddon, the very last battle. So that Armageddon, again, I think that is chronological with 18, that God is going to supernaturally destroy Babylon, the city Babylon, that, or whatever it is, like this. It is a geographical place, but I'm not how big it is or whatever. I don't know. But I think it will be the Antichrist seat, but I don't think he'll be destroyed there, of course. But after that happens, so all the earth will mourn, and this is even going to strengthen, I believe, more resolve with the Antichrist, because he's going to get these 10 kings to gather all their armies after this. So, because this is like, they know God's doing this whole time. We saw that even from the first of the tribulation period, that it says the men of the earth realize it's God. At the first 7 seal judgments, it says that they were shaking their fist at God and hiding under the rocks and cursing him and cursing the Lamb who sits on the throne. That they know who it is, so they know who they're dealing with this whole time. But finally, like this appears to be like the last straw. Like when God destroys the city Babylon, because again, 19:1 through 17, I guess, is going to be other things. But when we jump back into it, it's like picking up from 18. It's like the Antichrist now. Babylon's been destroyed. The whole earth is mourning. They understand. They realize who it is. And the Antichrist rallies the troops and says, okay, it's time to go to battle with the one who has done all this damage to us. It's time to go to battle, to go to war with the one who has caused us 7 years of grief, 7 years of pain, 7 years of destruction. It's time to finally go to battle with him. And we're going to meet in the valley of Megiddo, Tel Megiddo, Armageddon. And so that's where 1917 will pick up, is that final battle. The Antichrist and all his armies, all the forces of the armies, the 10 kingdoms, they're all going to bring them across the great river Euphrates. They're going to come into the valley of Megiddo, and they're going to come in with hatred in their hearts, wanting to finally go to war with Jehovah and his Lamb. And again, they're going to be sadly mistaken, because as soon as they see him coming, they're going to know we're not going to win. We're in trouble. Yeah, hallelujah. We're done. All right, so that's, and then we finally get into the glories of heaven and the glories of, well, the binding of Satan, and then the glories of heaven and the heaven and the new earth. And